This is for you.
Thanks. Well, kia ora tato. Rod.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Rod. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Now, Mr. Techweek is how I've seen you.
Techweek.
You're here, there, and everywhere. But before we get into it, Rod, before we ask you any questions about the Techweek and why you and what and all that, we've got the one and only prepared question.
Yes.
Which is, do you want to do the question?
What makes you happy?
What makes me happy? Actually, having great chats with people. I love to find out what's going on. I was the third of 3 kids, and I was always asking my older brothers and sisters, what's going on there? What's this about? And I just kind of realised as a journalist I could be paid to do that. So,
nice.
So turning up, just having a good old chat about things makes me very happy.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we make you happy then.
Yes, absolutely.
So
that and a coffee. So.
Oh, the coffee.
Coffee's always good, yeah.
I have to say, this is a wonderful venue
Pretty
because,
nice,
as we
yeah.
say, we do have a coffee machine and a cafe back there. It's great. Mr. Techweek, you're involved in a lot of the events.
I saw you last night too at the other.
Look, just a few, but they're good ones because there's more than 450.
Well, this is true. Yes.
There are limits. Although I did ask last night who in the room, this was at the networking drinks, who had got the maximum number of tickets, and I started at 10, and there was a person who had signed up for 17 things over the course of the week, and around the country too. So I was very impressed.
That's pretty impressive.
So my role's a great privilege because I'm just emceeing a few events. So yesterday was the Upstarter one, of course, which I think set the whole context very well about how the way we do tech and innovation here in New Zealand is evolving very fast, but in very distinctive ways. And I'll come back to that question because I'm one of the Edmund Hillary Fellows, and we are very focused on that.
Yeah.
And then later on in the afternoon I was sitting in on various sessions like blockchain, which I really enjoyed. And I think one of the things that came out of blockchain was, one of the predictions was many of us will find ourselves using some sort of product or service, say over the next year, and we'll have no idea that blockchain's involved.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic because the sooner we can stop talking about Bitcoin and talk about everything else, would be cool.
Right.
And then this morning I was just over on the North Shore, and just the venue itself, this new beehive, this new co-working space at Smales Farm, is really huge and cool. I mean, just as Grid Auckland is here. And it's just wonderful to see places like this around town. And then there was the talent. There were 4 really good tech people. Several of them I knew a bit about, but the person who took me by surprise I didn't know was Matthew Simmons from Myriad, which is an exascale data storage and processing technology. And this is a bloke who's a terrific serial entrepreneur. And Myriad now has 200 engineers working down in the Waikato in Cambridge.
Wow.
And Matthew was just terrifically good. I can see why he was so convincing to people. Sorry, I don't mean that in a facetious way.
No.
And I can see why he's having a great career. And he started as 12 years old in Christchurch making electronics things. And it just kind of grew from there.
The old tinkering in the garage thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's why, and that's just a little taste of the first sort of day and a half of
it's only been a day and a half.
I'm exhausted already.
I'm not saying anything.
I can see you've got a stick up your back here to keep you up.
Yeah, well, that's from Facebook.
Oh, that's from Facebook, yeah.
The unhappy face keeping you up, yes. And then very briefly at the head, we're going to see you in a lot of places. So
you are. So you're heading off to Tauranga too?
That's right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm particularly, I mean, I'm excited about all of Techweek, but I'm particularly excited about the 10 billion mouths tomorrow, because we're here in New Zealand at a really critical juncture, as indeed are any conventional farmers, about trying to work out where technology and consumers take them from here. And so the whole structure of the program tomorrow, and so a big pitch to anybody who's not going to be in Tauranga, look at the webcast.
Yes, that's right.
Because they are terrific speakers from home and abroad. Some New Zealanders from abroad, like Rosie Bosworth, who's very good on these issues.
You've got to chat to Rosie.
You do talk to Rosie. She's terrific. And sorry, I'll digress with the story about Rosie. I was trying to get in to see some of these cellular agriculture companies up in Silicon Valley in January, and I started doing that late last year, trying to fix up meetings. And I got through to one or two. One of them was Finless Foods, which is working out how to grow bluefin tuna from stem cells.
Wow.
And the CEO is very welcoming in Berkeley, Mike, lovely bloke. And I discovered that he'd checked me out with Rosie. He said, "Oh, there's this New Zealand journalist coming. You know, should I give him any time?" And Rosie apparently said yes. So thank you, Rosie.
Got the Rosie seal approval.
So this is the sort of New Zealand connections, which of course we see across the tech sector. So anyway, I think that's going to be a big day. And then the other main one. So I'm then involved with another agri-tech session in Tauranga on Thursday, one brought together by University of Waikato. And then on Friday, I'm involved with the Industry 4.0 one in Christchurch. And the great thrill there, sorry, I'm talking too much. Is this
no, that's what you're supposed to be doing.
That's okay.
I'm supposed to be doing. Good.
Down there too.
Yeah, do that. Because I'm really interested in the whole Industry 4.0 thing. But
what is that?
Oh, it's
when they hear the number, people are going to go,
right.
What number are we on now
right?
then?
You know, the first Industry 1.0 was possibly steam driven. I'm not sure anybody's going back further. Industrial age.
Oh, okay.
Although technically there was water power and animal power before that. And then you look through the enormous shifts in industry over the last 200 years. So we're definitely on to 4.0 in terms of all the obvious things like 3D printing and nanoscale stuff and all the rest.
With you, thank you.
And for me, there's a real historic resonance here because it's one of my favourite New Zealand tech stories. We're going to be having that get-together at Tate Electronics.
Yes.
Now, Sir Angus Tate was this lovely bloke who had been a bit of a radio whiz in the Royal Air Force during the Second World War. And when he ended up in Christchurch, I'm not sure he was from Christchurch, after the war, he started building radios for taxi cabs.
That's right.
And then after that, he began to say, well, you know, I think the technology is going to change, and we're doing valves and things like this, but there's this semiconductor thing coming. There's a whole digital electronics coming. And he, at this point, had a sizable electronics business, Tate Electronics, and but there was nowhere to train up those people. So he worked with the University of Canterbury to start teaching that, to start people on PhD tracks. So when he was ready for the technology, he had the people there. And so that's, to me, is a wonderful story about technology foresight, but also being willing to invest and plan that far ahead. And of course, Tate is still a fiercely independent company owned by a trust, and yet it can go up against big competitors like Motorola in those sort of emergency service radios business, and this is a whole new tech centre they've got, which I haven't seen. So that's the long story about why I'm really happy to be discussing that subject at Tate on Friday in Techweek.
Yes,
nice,
excellent. Go on, have a sip.
I will.
I won't ask the question.
Just take a break. There you go.
Everybody have a sip.
Have a sip of water or whatever.
No, make yourself right at home.
That's right. It's Rod sip time. Go for it. And you talked briefly. Well, you are an Edmund Hillary Fellow.
Yes.
What is that like?
What is that?
The Edmund Hillary Fellowship. This came out of some wonderful tech people in Wellington who were doing a Kiwi Connect thing, trying to get New Zealand tech companies better plugged into Silicon Valley. So there were new immigrants there like the Monahan brothers, some very good and successful Silicon Valley entrepreneurs who were settling in New Zealand. Wonderful people like Yosef Ayele, wonderful story, from Ethiopia, ended up at Harvard as an undergraduate, then got into Silicon Valley, but then because his degree didn't match the work he was doing, US immigration said, boy mate, out of here. Oh. So he came to New Zealand.
Well, this is a good thing. Their loss, our gain.
Our great gain.
Yes.
So the simple concept behind the Edmund Hillary Fellowship is that there is something about how we do innovate slightly differently down here, and because of the small scale of the country, we collaborate well, and we're getting a lot better at that. We didn't used to be good at that, and because we're far away, out at the edge, that's often where breakthroughs happen. So what would happen if we brought together people who were good investors and innovators from overseas with New Zealanders who are in that same kind of space? What could we learn from each other?
Yep.
So the Edmund Hillary idea then was taken to the government and said, well, if we could help select people like that, would you give them a visa for, say, 3 years? And the government, this was the previous national government, responded very enthusiastically. And so the program developed. So so you're an Edmund Hillary Fellow for 3 years. I'm in the first cohort that started last October. And there are 22 of us from overseas and 6 of us from New Zealand. And there's a real strength around blockchain in there. There's some really good stuff around other IT areas, but also environmental issues. We've got a fabulous African-American black slam performance poet, Sonia Ray Taylor, who's absolutely fantastic. And so that's the sort of people. And then a new cohort starts every 6 months. So we just had another New Frontiers conference and another welcome week for those. And these are even more diverse. I think there's about 39 of them. And from, I think, 18 countries.
Wow.
We were from 8 countries, I think. And so that's how it's scaling up. And the blockchain people who are developing, who are coming through in the cohorts, they are focused on trying to help New Zealand deliver or devise and put in place a good regulatory framework for blockchain. And so that's the kind of stuff we're up to.
Perfect.
And so if anybody, we're always looking for new talent to be potential fellows. So if you go to ehf.org.nz, you can find out all about the program.
Awesome.
And then the whole New Frontiers conferences twice a year. Terrific speakers from home and abroad.
Perfect.
So that's the kind of stuff we get up to.
That's
wonderful.
awesome,
Well, thank you, Rod.
Appreciate your time. That was really good.
My great. Sorry, I've talked too much.
No, that's your job.
Gave you a chance.
Our job's to listen. Your job's to talk.
No,
it's all
good.
good.
Yes, I
it
think
worked out well.
Perfect.
We'll talk some more.
Absolutely will.
See you in Tauranga. Now.
See you then. Yes, absolutely.
And
that's
you'll
really
see Rod
special
as well.
thing to see you in Tauranga.
Go and
Webcast,
visit.
all right?
Yes.